first years of the 21st century, a third World War broke out. Mankind could never survive a fourth.
Solid elevator pitch for this movie's existence. No World War IV post-World War III. I can admit that it's a little goofy. Prison Break is just sitting here staring at a painting, but there's a good chance this was just recently found, and more to the point is that in a world where this is no longer legally allowed to exist, you would stop taking it for granted. I'd be staring at an old Coke can for its swooping typography if art had been outlawed.
You know what to do.
Die? Is it die? I feel like it's die. I'm guilty of a little hero worship when it comes to Christian Bale. He's in a lot of things I love, so a shot like this always feels epic, even though at this point he was just the guy from Reign of Fire, American Psycho, and Newsies. But whatever. His stoic, emotionless amongst the chaos look is a perfect intro for his character. Also, Klaus Badelt gets a win for this little flourish. Yes, you're not crazy, this is very Matrixy, but there is a solid reason behind it all beyond just Sean Bean and Christian Bale look tight and black. Conformity. Just a little glance that plants the idea in your brain that Ned's not like the others. He always was too pure for the Seven King Daimine Libria. And you're free to call this Matrixy as well, but I'm not about to take anything away from Kurt Wimmer or Dion Beebe, the DP responsible for a crap ton of films I love looking at. A hyper-stylized, brain-blurring effect. And there's a full 22 seconds of darkness and mostly silence leading up to it, where Preston is assessing everyone's locations and stressing the audience right out.
It's real. Burn it.
So you might be wondering why authenticity matters. Art is art, a print's a print. But once you destroy the original, no more prints or copies can be made. So they'd consider it a win beyond just destroying some art. The addition of the people screaming in the background is a nice touch as a little reminder that when you destroy history, it's more than just the physical media that's lost.
How long, Preston? Till all this is gone? Till we've burned every last bit of it?
We'll get it all eventually.
It's not super duper subtext, but this movie is rife with people saying something that can be interpreted in multiple ways. Obviously, Preston is lamenting the slow pace of destruction, while Partridge is mourning the loss, even conflating the destruction of every last bit of it with humanity itself, something we get into more later. Just plain amazing lighting, blocking, framing, composition, all of it.
That you were very nearly a prodigal student, knowing almost instantly if someone is feeling...
No, am I gonna have to take a win off here? Is this like those people who use integral to mean filled with integrity? Prodigal and prodigy are not the same. Wait, no! This gives us an opportunity for a Cinema Wins Word of the Day.
How is it that you came to miss it?
I've asked myself that same question, sir. I don't know.
A nearly unforgivable lapse, cleric.
Great way to establish what this rule is like. He starts by attempting to say Preston is a prodigy, but ends with essentially a warning because he didn't rat out his wife quicker.
Because you tread on my dreams.
Appropriate coming from the most tread-on actor of all time. Or is it dead-on?
A heavy cost. I pay it gladly.
And there's your quandary to consider. Do the negatives of emotion outweigh the positives? Hey, so also fun side note, Sean Bean has always been always a win, but for some reason he wasn't in Fellowship? It's like, what? I think he just got outshined by some other always a win actors. Anyway, dude's always a win. Oof, then making Preston shoot him through poetry. Badass good guy.
Do you think I should report him?
Another to add to the list of multiple meaning lines, there's potential that Robbie is just playing the dutiful student checking to make sure his dad isn't feeling, but I think it's more likely that he's checking to see if his dad has maybe crossed over to the dark side. Wait, the emotional side. I love that he just springs to action, breaking bones, because of course he and his family are above reproach. Little Pleasantville homage here, eh? Not really. But Preston's wife is entirely oversaturated while Preston is washed out. Then she transfers that life to him with a kiss, but he returns to gray as she's taken away. Excellent subtle attention to detail. Feels like a good time to talk about Beebe and Wimmer's use of shadow and stark contrast with bright lights and how much I just plain love it.
Due to terrorist activity, this site is temporarily closed.
I appreciate that it was a series of unfortunate events that led to Preston's sense crime. It makes sense, and it's more realistic than having him just wake up one day and decide to go against everything he's believed his entire life.
Look at you. Look at you.
Another double meaning statement, accusation switching to inquisition, almost admiration? Hey, split diopter. Ooh, that's a fun subversion. Spinning the camera around to show that Preston redirected Brandt's gun.
You exist to continue your existence. What's the point? Breath is just a clock.
That's really what Boromir was talking about before. What's left of humanity when we're just surviving?
The gun cutter treats the gun as a total weapon, while keeping the defender clear of the statistically traditional trajectories of...
And that's all you need to know about that.
Makes the master of the gun cutters an adversary not to be taken lightly.
Haha, if you could only listen to your own advice. amazing scene. You can feel that wave of endorphins rushing in for the first time. And yeah, can you even imagine? Since most drugs either reproduce the effects of our hormones or actually trick your body into releasing them, this would be like taking an opioid for Preston. He would feel high, the John Denver kind of high, Rocky Mountain high. Although he liked other kinds of, you get the point. So the impulse to sober up totally makes sense. Actually noticing a stunning sunrise for the first time could feel like a bad trip to someone who's never felt anything before. Also, Christian Bale's workout routine. Everyone always gives Christian so much credit for bulking up for Batman Begins, but he's just about as huge here. So he was big but lean for this and Reign of Fire, then went deathly skinny for The Machinist, then quickly bulked back up for Batman Begins.
Opiate of our masses.
Just in case you weren't sure if any parallels were being drawn. I mean, I too pay the price for love gladly, but I wouldn't mind a little something to take the edge off the claustrophobia I'm feeling just watching this. Yeah, no, I know. But that's an SSRI. Right, benzo. Prozium is Prozac plus Valium? Oh, it's so clear now. The comparisons to 1984 et al. Are totally fair, but it's all worth it in moments like this where they convey the concept so succinctly with no dialogue, no explanation. Just the monochromatic toned outfits under flickering fluorescence marching upstairs to wind down the clicking breath clock. Something as simple as touching cold metal, an innocuous action this woman clearly uses to feel alive in the sea of oppression. Another mind-blowing experience for Preston. I'm honestly not sure if this was deliberate or not. The purpose is to show Preston noticing the conformity that he used to just blindly accept. But the camera lands almost askew, making me wonder if it's not just Preston starting to see the cracks in that conformity.
Nice grab, Claire.
Compliments. Interesting argument for utilizing your senses. I mean, duh. Cheesy, but effective. Appropriate reaction. It's likely Preston's heard music before, but it would be like tasting ice cream while your tongue is coated in wax, or looking at a beautiful painting with black and white glasses that have cross-hatching on the lenses. You can acknowledge that it exists, but never really truly experience it.
These animals were defended by women and children. We put them down easily.
Oh gosh. I feel like there's a statement in there about our own current culture. We all just sort of shrug at the murder of women and children. But a puppy? Don't you dare kill a puppy. And on each gunshot, they cut a frame or two out to add to that jarring effect and awful things Preston is feeling.
At least some of these animals ought to be tested for disease.
Yeah, it's actually easier to test them once they're dead, but that little cognitive dissonance plays right into Brandt's suspicions, which if they've been building for a little while now, they're elevated here. But also saving that little puppy.
It's not the message that is important, it is our obedience to it.
Did Hitler say that? Is he just quoting Hitler now? Hey, wait a minute. I'm gonna give a cliche dodge here for not having Mary look directly into the camera because that would have been the cliche thing to do. Here's a fun filmmaking trick. If you don't get coverage of your subject entering the vehicle, just reverse the shot of him exiting. Or this is a CO2 absorbing car and Equilibrium was actually displaying the answers to all our climate related problems. Yeah, it's that one. Aw, this guy is clearly a wife win.
Shoot him! Shoot him!
Come on, he knew. But it was too late. The gun kata had come for him.
What? Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him!
Actually, he didn't even know. It happened too fast. So let's talk about the Libria symbol stylized muzzle flashes. Actually, that's it. Although deep down, I'm hoping that the muzzle flash happened organically and the symbol came from it. Fun fact, unlike The Matrix, no wires were used in this movie. Everything was done with trampolines and just good old-fashioned acrobatics. Yup. Also, yup. So no wonder Bruce Wayne took so easily to the League of Shadows training. He was basically already a ninja.
It's my job to know what you're thinking.
I'm wondering how your face feels. Love the switch back and forth between level and Dutch tilt, really leaning into Preston's increasing stress. Wait, so is Bale essentially telling Taye Diggs to mind his footing? No more remakes. Kurt Wimmer's dead. Did it just get seriously brutal in here? At some point, you might wonder why these idiots won't stop standing in circles around dudes specifically trained to kill guys standing in circles around them. But then there would be no way for us to find out that cleric guns have little glass breaker things on the butt of their guns.
What are you doing?
Nicely done, cleric.
We have to assume Brandt knows by now, but wants to see how far gone Preston is, and he also potentially takes joy in messing with him?
Very definition of teamwork.
I guess. Teamwork? Gotta give Wimmer credit for building tension around a simple insert of a finger moving a dial. Is he gonna kill everyone? Nah, sense offender knows. And of course, the feeler notices. Dude, he just gave you a different gun. That's his left hand. Maybe I'm reading into this a tad too much, but I feel like there's this idea at play that everyone else missed this picture and the connection to Mary because you need your feelings to be a good detective. So another split diopter, but I just want to point out the interesting aesthetic choice to create a delineation parallel to the wall edge. It actually draws less attention to it than most. In case you're wondering how Preston knew that was a false part of the wall, the entire part of that bookshelf is a different color and looks completely separate.
Some very few of us have to force ourselves not to feel.
Culinar isn't for everyone. A possible little hint that Father 2.0 or 4.0, whatever, is actually feeling himself. That's not experiencing emotions.
Are you playing with me, cleric?
Also that.
Good night, Dad.
And another little hint that the kid has stopped his interval. He usually calls his dad by his name. Another insanely emotionally charged scene over the simplest of gestures.
Don't. Seeing her one last time will only make it harder to do what you have to do.
Still holding out for that William Fichtner solo movie. Fun fact, that makes this probably super confusing for most, but 2 actresses are playing Viviana Preston. Alexa Summer is this one, but when they went to shoot the flashback scene of her arrest, they couldn't find her. So they cast Maria Calzone as Preston's wife. I think this could be a little confusing. It's not so much that learning he was present for his wife's execution is some kind of twist or revelation. It's more like he literally stood by last time as his wife was burned alive because he felt nothing for her. It didn't stand out to him as an important event because it was just another day. So he rushes out of the room hoping to not let history repeat itself. Emily Watson is always a win. I've always really loved her, Red Dragon, Punch Drunk Love, but sometimes you never know if you just like the characters and maybe you're biased, but watching her react to a fire that's definitely not actually in front of her clinches it. You can feel her trepidation from the heat. And another expectation subversion. In your run-of-the-mill Brave New Giver Fahrenheit 1984 movie, you don't expect them to go full burn the main love interest alive, but they went for it. Oh man, and the stress again of knowing he's about to be caught. Also, another appropriate reaction.
The trace shows that it was your gun in the nether with the sweepers.
He switched them. See, I have his gun now.
Of course you do. You took it when you arrested me.
Okay, this is what you would call a plot hole. The general consensus is that scenes were reordered in editing. So this scene should have been before this scene. But I get what they were going for. And let's just say that maybe tracing the gun only determines who currently has it. So Preston kills the sweepers and the nethers with his own gun and then switches it with Brant's so that it will be in his possession should this ever happen. Also, none of this matters because DuPont was playing them all like a fiddle anyway.
Do you think that's entirely necessary, cleric, or am I being too exacting?
I'm not feeling.
That sounds a lot like emotion there, Brant. Which, while we're theorizing, so does this. And so is this. I think it's possible Brant was feeling. At the very least, we know that Prosium doesn't eradicate emotion entirely, since earlier he said,
Get my interval adjusted.
That means it's a spectrum. Too much you're a zombie, not enough you're screaming as you're pulled away.
The only thing that disturbs me, sir, I've never had the honor of meeting him.
Whew, that's like a segue on my level.
I'd be more careful in the future.
How long?
Since Mom.
So that'll just warm your heart, especially thinking back to how cold he was with his sister.
Stop that.
He was protecting her, teaching her to pretend she was taking Prosium. A little Last Supper there, Prestutus?
We've never met.
No?
Equilibrium predicted deepfakes.
Entirely without incident.
No. Not without incident.
So epic. And I love that everything Father says to Preston could be said right back to him. Actually, it's like the third reversal.
To make you feel like you'd won.
Capturing the resistance was a ruse to make Father think he'd won. Then Father captured Preston while making him think he'd won, and now Preston switched it back again.
You ask him for it.
Okay, so that's amazing, but also, because Preston has been trained so intensively in Gun Kata, it makes sense that he would just sort of turn off his brain and become an instinctual murder machine. I mean, your blood pressure, pulse, and respiration shouldn't flatline, but you get the idea they're trying to convey, and we all know it's fantastic. This is about as Matrixy as this movie gets, but I'm not about to complain about some Gun Kata madness, with a little sick and genius reloading. And Preston has lots of multi-kills, but I can't not win a backflip double no-look kill. Okay, that's a straight-up quadruple kill. And he rainbows a G36 to kill 4 more guys, 2 through a door. This video is never gonna make any revenue, is it? Worth it. And we finally see behind the curtain. EC10 doesn't apply to Father, with the paintings on the walls, his ornate desk, and the chandelier. Also, the implication that both Father and Brant are off Prosium. Fourth, thinking you've won switcheroo. But it's like they don't know he's Batman. Although he's less Bale-Bat and more Batfleck with respect to body count. Also just so much brutality.
Mind the uniform, cleric. I plan to be wearing it for a long time.
I'm sorry, Tay Diggs. I love you, but if there was ever a more appropriate comeuppance, I mean, I'm sure there are. But the idea that Preston was basically toying with him during training, or at worst, just overcome with his new emotions, just... Also, was that a lightsaber sound? Like, was that the exact sound of Anakin decapitating a Sith Lord? Oh, the early 2000s. This effect was created and then used in every action movie. Still love it. Also, how gorgeous is this shot I used for the teaser frame? Even DuPont's disgusted face. Something you may have noticed is that the beginning of this film has barely any blood in it, but as we progress, the blood increases, just like Preston waking up to all the killing that he was so desensitized to before. As a big sword fight fan, well, you know. But since this movie is at least partially about these super soldiers that treat pistol play as a form of martial art on par with Revolver Ocelot, it's a superb way to end it all.
Is it really worth the price?
I pay it gladly.
Dollback and comeuppance. Day's face. Hey, if you've got to destroy some computers, I see no reason to use anything other than gun kata. In fact, I'd be disappointed if he didn't. Saving you, William Fichtner. And the puppy's alive. Clearly this is meant to be a victorious moment, but you can't help but notice that war is immediately back. Not saying war is worse than genocidal slaughter, just that it wasn't a consequence-free action. And while Preston is crying happy tears for freedom, I can't help but also believe he's feeling the payment. This is the one time you have to check to be sure. Look, I get that Equilibrium isn't going to work for everyone. I'll even admit that 17-year-old Lee may have had a different appreciation for movies than he does now. But dang it if I don't still love this movie. It just sort of hits the appropriate beats of totalitarian dystopian futures, throws in gun kata, because of course it does, and pretty much rides Christian Bale's acting chops until boom! See ya face. What a moment. But honestly, this is one of those movies, and actually sorry to anyone who watched this video before the movie, that you just need to stumble onto one day on TBS or TNT, because everyone still has cable, right? You'll be surprised by its poor rating. But when people like me build it up too much, I guess it's just easy to throw stones at it. It's just 1984 with guns, The Matrix with no subtlety, The Giver, but loud. I don't know, I found that it sort of blended all those things and a few others like Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World into a fun action movie. But I personally find the Matrix comparison annoying just because, well, first, The Invisibles, Neuromancer, Dark City. Second, wearing black leather and doing martial arts wasn't invented by the Wachowskis. Perfected? Maybe? But style is really the only comparison you can draw. And even that's been deliberately dulled to gray and beige in all things monochromatic. The hardest part about making a movie with characters that aren't supposed to convey emotion is that it could, and if you're true to your premise, should get really dull. Somehow Bale is captivating even when he's emotionless. But like I said, Prosium would be incapable of completely eliminating feelings. I joked about Brandt's little smile here, but is being smug an emotion? Kind of. If you didn't get the self-satisfaction from it, why would you bother? And even with a Catch-22 premise, I just love how seriously these actors take this movie. It gives the whole thing such credibility. This isn't overacting. This is an actor who understands what a man who'd never felt emotion would go through. He's gonna fall to pieces in public. Kinda like that thing Liquid Ocelot did in MGS4 where he turned off nanomachines and everyone was hit with the weight of everything they'd done. 2 MGS references in this video? Should I play through that entire series and do a few Everything Great About videos for each game? That could be fun. I think it's on my mind because there's at least a part of me that loves this movie because it's such a video game. Right down to boss fights with the final boss's office being the last step before destroying the mainframe. I've talked a lot about themes and what this movie is trying to say, but there's no reason to pretend it's some dystopian masterpiece. I don't think it was really intended to be. It's a story we've heard before. What it is, and why a lot of people love it, is the pure wish fulfillment. I've learned over time that Mary Stews / Gary Stews are often my favorite characters. Don't get me wrong, if Rocky doesn't get knocked down, there's no story. But I also have a vivid memory of running out of the room and crying as a kid when Tong Po was kneeing Jean-Claude Van Damme to death. My dad had to come get me and let me know that Kurt Sloan was winning now. For the record, it was on TNT or something. That's how I was exposed to all those amazing movies as a kid. But sometimes you just want to see a flawless hero win every fight. And actually, a second on the record was that Jean-Claude Van Damme was throwing the fight to save his brother, so technically he was a flawless hero. But I think it's a large part of why we love Preston. He's this machine and the only cleric, or even character really in the entire film that actually believes in Libria. Everyone else is either feeling or pretending to not be feeling. So because he believes in the system, he's been turned into a super soldier. And regardless of your feelings on the importance of emotion, I think we can all agree the ability to turn it off makes you pretty dangerous. Brandt here is concerned with his freaking uniform before battle. Bye-bye face. Sadly, this movie has had a large and vocal cult following for long enough that we've come back around to people being upset if you call it underrated now. So whatever. Much like most of the movies I do, I don't need you to like it. The vast majority of us who do love this movie get that it's a cheese fest. That's part of the fun. Even Wimmer gets that. He explicitly states multiple times that this movie isn't meant to be a warning or a look at a potential future, even the way 1984 was when it was written.
What do they eat him?
It's an alternate reality fantasy with gun, fu, swords, and a man fighting for his right and everybody's right to feel. How could I not get behind that? Hope you can have fun with this as well. Next week, a really incredulous movie. Yeah.